Alrighty.
Welcome back to the Shed the Shame podcast, folks. I am your co-host, Aljalyn, alongside Alex. We are joined today by Jamie Kayumi, an amazing woman, and we're going to talk about a topic that impacts roughly 600,000 women in the U.S. annually. But before we formally introduce Jamie, I wanted to share that we have reached nearly 20% of our fundraising goal for the Shed the Shame fundraising campaign. So remember that for each purchase of a water bottle or subscription to Ladybox, we donate funds to the nonprofit WaterAid, an organization that works to provide clean water and sanitation to over 30 countries across the world. All right, so that's that. All right, Alex, let's introduce Jamie.
Yay, we are so excited to be joined by Jamie today. She has experienced a hysterectomy and is going through perimenopause. So we're really excited to learn more. These are both topics, well, for perimenopause, something everyone goes through at some point. Hysterectomy, as Aljalyn said, 600,000 women and menstruators deal with it annually. And there's still not a lot of information out there. So we're really excited to learn more about you and your journey and all of your words of wisdom when it comes to dealing with this and dealing with your cycle as these changes are happening. So we love to start off with a cycle check-in, especially saying like, if you had a hysterectomy, what is that like for you? Do you know where you're at in your cycle? A lot of people would be really interested to hear that. So I think that would be a great place to start today.
Okay. Well, it's been about a year since I've had a period. I celebrated my last period, had a party in July 2021. Let's see here, where are we at? No, last year, 2020. Yeah, thank you. I just want to erase that year.
Amen.
You end up with a little fogginess from perimenopause. I'm going through the brain fog for sure. But I did celebrate my last period and I haven't had one for a year. My hysterectomy was pretty difficult. So it's just in the last 2 or 3 months that I really started to figure out what my emotional cycle is. There is definitely still a cycle, but I could liken it to riding like one of those mechanical bulls. I really haven't figured it out yet. Other than I notice I'm a little more emotional. Like if a commercial grabs me, or like something like Oprah-esque grabs me and I get like teary-eyed, I'm like, okay, I'm in my cycle now. I don't have a lot of physical symptoms. And one of the positives of having hysterectomy is I don't have migraines anymore that are around my cycle. So that was always a key. Okay, I'm going to have a migraine. My cycle is going to start in a day or two. And then I end up with the migraine at the end. So they kind of bookend my period, which was really nice not to have those anymore.
Yeah, I was just saying, holy cow, that's like not pleasant at all.
No, it was horrible. And those started in my 20s when I started to get migraines.
Wow.
Yeah, so I dealt with that for a good, I'm 47 now, so I dealt with that for a good 20 years. So yeah, that was no fun. But that was one of the pleasant things is when I got rid of my uterus. I shouldn't say got rid of it, but it's kind of what it felt like at that point. Yeah. I also got rid of my migraines, which was nice.
Yeah.
I went to the Chihuly exhibit recently in downtown, near the Space Needle.
Yep.
And there is a huge, beautiful red with black speckled spots, strange chandelier shaped thing, like, I don't know, 20 feet. And it looks just like I'm like, that's what my uterus looks like. I wish I had a picture of it right now.
Oh, wow.
But it was just so difficult. I had fibroids and, a lot going on in there that was really painful. So,
yeah. For those who are not familiar with the Seattle area and the Chihuly Museum and Glass exhibit, it is a museum or exhibit or store where you can look at beautiful glass art and then purchase it too. So that's the Chihuly.
Sorry, I just digressed. As an artist, I just went and saw it. and my husband and I are walking through the exhibit and I see this huge red monstrous thing, and that's exactly what my uterus felt like at the time. So anyways, help me out here. I've got lost in the question.
So talking about art, you last year you had a wonderful exhibit, art exhibit. You had beautiful art exhibited at Vibe Coworks where
Mhm.
you and I met, Jamie.
Mhm.
And it was so moving. So, and there was like one that you ended up keeping for yourself at home. And for those of you who don't know, Jamie is an artist. She's a user experience, user interface consultant. She's actually helping Ladybox improve user experience there too. But if you want to talk a little bit about like you and then also that art exhibit and the one that you kept, that was like, it was moving to me. And if I had had the funds, I would have purchased it. But yeah, like talk about that.
um, so I did an art series called Home. It was about the concept of home versus homelessness. And in Kitsap County here in our area, all the libraries, they do a countywide one book. What is it called? It's like a campaign where everybody in the community reads the same book. I can't think of it right now. And it was about homelessness. The book is called Evicted. It's a very difficult book to read. And as an artist, I wanted to come in and talk about difficult subject matter with the community and at the same time get people to engage with it on a personal level and also find the way out of homelessness, right? The concept of home versus homelessness. So finding one's way back to themselves. So the work ended up being about how homelessness is a traumatic event that happens in our lives, but anytime we have trauma in our lives, we kind of get evicted from ourselves, from our own lives, and we have to find a way back to ourselves. That was the heavy part of it. But there was also the lighter part of just being human, which is we all have to grow up. We all have to leave the nest. We all have to go out and forge our way into the world. And everybody has to do that part. But what you notice, some people just don't make it back sometimes to themselves. They get kind of broken along the way and lost. And the journey about getting back to oneself. So the work started with a piece that was very dark. Somebody's on the streets dead, basically. They're just laid flat. And then at the end, the very last piece I did in that series, there's 10 pieces. It's called Take Every Wave, and it's by Laird Hamilton. He's a internationally known surfer. He's like the god in the surfing world, but he's never won even just one medal of any kind. But everybody in the surfing world just bows to him, and he doesn't care about that. You know, he's just his home is the water. And so I did a painting called Take Every Wave, and it's him going through like a tunnel in a wave. But the piece you're referring to is called The Double Blind Study, and that's about the shadow side of ourselves, which is intimately connected to our periods and our cycles. We all have a shadow side, and if we don't learn how to deal with it, hence PMS, getting out of control, or any of those things in our lives, right, our emotions, it ends up taking control of us. And so that piece you're talking about is called Double Blind Study. Maybe I can give you an image later so you can attach it if you want to this.
Yes.
But that piece is the wisdom you gain as you go. You can start talking in decades about what it means to be a woman, how you define yourself as a woman, and how you define yourself by not just what you do that's positive and nice and cheery, but what you also do when you need to be angry, when you need to be assertive, when you need to take action. Because that's what the shadow side provides for us. It provides that active energy, that masculine versus feminine energy, to move through the world and get shit done. Am I allowed to cuss on a podcast?
Yes.
Oh, this one, yes. Not maybe not on a podcast, but you can on this podcast.
So that piece was, a lot of people were very interested in that one. It's a very powerful piece. I have it in my house right now, and it's my family's favorite piece. It's the only one that didn't sell. I sold everything else. But I'm kind of glad that one didn't sell. And I think eventually it will. I had a couple other people that came over and were like, can I have that? It's a daily reminder that you have to deal with your darker side, and you have to deal with the interior part of us, which again relates to our flow. So having hysterectomy, my flow is more underground. It's more like water underground than a river on top of the land. And so it's forcing me to be even a little bit more aware and quieter and pay attention to myself. which is doubly hard because I have a lot going on right now with my girls in my life right now. I think it's kind of funny that they're teenagers and I'm going through perimenopause. I just have to remind myself, like, when we kind of butt heads, like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
outbitch a teenager. Like, it's
Yeah.
not gonna happen. Like, I just need to like be flexible like a reed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm learning right now.
I love how visual, like, of course you're an artist, so you can make, descriptions more visual, but like to even just be able to visualize that your cycle is more underground, the water is underground rather than like, that river above land. That's like
Mhm.
literally moving. And then also like moving in here, inside and like at the heart. And I love that. And I love that about how you're able to talk about things. And I love the story that you shared when you were in a store, even with, I think, your daughter, and you guys were like originally whispering about like period stuff. And then you're like, wait, no. So you're just amazing with
You want
that.
me to talk about, would you like me to talk about that story?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when I knew I wanted to work with you, Algelyn. I wanted to work with Ladybox because
Yeah.
I am 47, so let's see, I was in the 70s and 80s, right? Periods were not something you talked about. My period story, to keep it real short, I started my period young. I was like 11, and I didn't even know what a period was. And I woke up, and it was like a pool of blood on my mother's homemade favorite quilt.
Oh no.
I was like, oh my God. And I had no idea what happened other than I just wanted to fold it up and I put it in the back of my closet. And I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. So I just dealt with it. And then eventually she figured out I was on my cycle, and she talked to me, of course, and helped me get what I needed. And then I had to show her this, blanket of shame, and she was super sweet about it. I have like,
Yeah.
my stepmom, who's my mom, is like the best. And we ended up making a quilt together, and that's how we solved that problem.
Wow.
But for me, it could have been a totally different experience, right? Had
Yeah.
it been something that wasn't so taboo and not talked about.
Yeah.
And when Algen kind of pitched me her vision and what she was trying to do to, remove the taboo around period, around a woman's cycle, and also to improve self-care around our cycles. And ultimately, like what you're doing, is to connect it to, your life. Like, maybe I don't do a massive pitch right before the day of my cycle, like maybe I schedule that for a couple days later.
Yeah.
And the power inherent in that for women to really connect the dots that way and make decisions from a fully empowered space of, I am somebody who cycles. I have rhythm and rituals, and I need to incorporate that in my thinking and planning and doing and being, right? So my daughter and I are, my 14-year-old, okay, so just to let you know, I have two daughters, 18 and 14. My 18-year-old's like Audrey Hepburn, and my 14-year-old's like Joan Jett, which is kind of an old reference to a rock star kind of.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And so totally opposite. And my oldest was like, just put her hand on my back one day and said, I'm going to say something to you. I mean, I literally my back was to her. She's like, I'm going to say something to you. I've had my cycle. I don't want to talk about it. I have everything I need. I'm good. And I just, I was like, okay, can I ask you questions? And I got a little bit of a conversation. And then my other one, she just like sings it from the treetops. Like, she's like, period underwear. Like, this is the thing. So we were in, I don't know, Target, and where like, I'm like, oh, do you need some stuff? And then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, do you need some stuff? Do you need some pads? What do you need? And she looks at me and she's like, yeah, let's do this. So it was just that little flip in my mind where I'm like, oh, I subconsciously do this, and I don't even realize that I'm hush hush when I talk about it, as though it's impolite to do otherwise. And so it was nice to kind of release that.
I love that.
That is so awesome, because I set up a table for the agenda period at a conference that was almost all women. And so it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, but also to kind of help bring attention to our booth. We provided free period products each day of the conference with like, hey, come check us out in the lobby, And it was the second day, and a woman came through. There was no one out in the exhibition hall. And she was like, thank you for putting the products in the back.
Oh
And I was
God.
like, you're welcome. Because it's like, y'all, like, it's almost like 90% women here anyway. So like
Right.
probably at least 1 out of every 4 folks has their period right now. And she still could
Right.
not say it out loud in a completely empty hall where there were only 2 women at our table. And I was like, oh, this goes so much deeper. Like I
It
started
does.
to make a planner, and I uncovered all of these other things that I didn't know were just below the surface of this. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited for you to be here with us today. And you alluded to some of the issues you had kind of been having, but I would love for you to talk us about your hysterectomy and how you kind of came to that decision, what was going on medically for you, and you just kind of hear about that process.
Sure, sure. So I after having my 2 daughters, I was severely depleted. My iron stores were
Mm.
severely depleted. So I had chronic anemia, and I was receiving iron infusions where you go in and they give you an IV full of iron into your body, and it's like a vampire getting blood. Essentially, I would come out and like my cheeks would be rosy and just able to function again. But I became allergic, severely allergic to the iron. So I could not take it anymore. So I was struggling for about 2 years prior to my hysterectomy.
Mm.
And about a year, let's see here. I was supposed to have the surgery in May of 2020.
Okay.
However, due to the pandemic, they said it wasn't a medical emergency, excuse me. And so I had to wait. And so I waited
Mm.
until I became dangerously anemic. So I went into surgery in a really weakened state, which is not the
Mm.
best way to go into surgery. And then I ended up having complications. So not to scare anybody, but it was difficult. It was a difficult surgery, or the surgery went fine, but the recovery was super difficult, partly because I was anemic and partly because there was a mistake made in the hospital that created a cascading effect where I was pretty much in the hospital once a week for 2 months.
Wow.
So not knowing what was wrong, and developed a blood clot and almost had to go into emergency surgery for that. I was very lucky not to have to do that.
Mm.
So it was a good, honestly, I had the surgery in August, and it was not until probably January that I started to feel like a normal person. And I still see that it's going to take me a good full year to be back on my feet completely. And so the lesson for me right now is to just take things in stride and pay attention to when I need to rest and communicate that as much as I can with my personal and in my professional life. So
How have you been able to hold that boundary when you need to? Because I feel like, and I talked about this earlier during an Instagram live, so many women feel like they need to carry the burden of everything that is going on in
mhm,
their lives and in other people's lives around them. And like, since I have known you, I just have witnessed you really holding your boundaries really well with people. And so how have you empowered yourself to do that since yeah.
I take it day by day. I lean on my husband honestly a little bit because he kind of protects my space and time and has me do a check-in. We actually created that because I am having a little bit of like I'm not as sharp, as I am usually really sharp. I mean, I'm sure I'm still really sharp in some ways, or I couldn't do my job. But for me, like, the
Mhm.
level I'm used to being at, so I've created like a backup plan that he checks in with me. If I'm going to take on anything new, we talk.
Mhm.
And he's like, we've got some questions we ask you. He asks me to ask. It's like having a letter, and you write a letter to yourself, and then you open it up, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's right. So
Yeah.
he's kind of doing that for me, and that helps a lot. And
Okay.
ultimately, I slow down. I make myself slow down and meditate. Even if I can't get a full 20-minute meditation in, I do 5 minutes. I put a little sign underneath my mirror that says resist resisting. So if I feel like,
Oh.
no, I need to get something done, I don't have time to meditate. I'm like, oh, there it is. And I just kind of, I just made like an 80s reference to a pop song. Um,
There
there
it
it is. And so that helps me a lot. And some days I don't make it. Some days I do too much. And I'm like, you know, okay, go to sleep,
Good.
get some real rest, sleep in. I let
Mm.
myself sleep in. And I just communicate. And I also remember, like, it's not going to feel good to always say I can't do more. And I'm okay with that. I guess
Yeah.
that's what it is. And I assume I will eventually get to a place where I won't feel bad for taking time. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
the feelings are there, but I know they're not really an accurate account of reality, because the
Mhm.
reality is that I am healing and I am doing what I can when I can. And my priorities are straight. I know what I'm doing with my kids. I know, what I'm trying to do with my career. And this is the time in my life where, like the tortoise and hare, I see myself as more the tortoise, and I'm
Mhm.
going slow and steady. Where I used to be like pull a rabbit out of a hat and do all this crazy stuff and really fast, and that
Mhm.
was that was my superpower. But now that I've hit a different stride in my life, right now the lesson for me is to learn to be steady and go forward. So that's kind of the dominant groove in my life right now,
Mhm.
that I'm learning to be steady and consistent and go slow. And that's personal for me. So I guess for others, learning what that needs to be for you. Maybe the dominant groove needs to be quick and get things
Mhm.
done and then move on to the next thing. Who knows? Um, but for me right now, that's really important, especially when it comes to perimenopause, because you are learning how to surf. You're learning how to move through the world in a very different way. You're releasing a certain amount of your youth in some ways, but then that doesn't mean you're not youthful.
Yep.
Um, I'm finding a different level of sexy, what that means for me.
Eh,
And
yeah, I love that.
yeah, and so it's like just that you hear it a lot, it's showing up for yourself. I think also my progesterone being a little lower now that I'm going into perimenopause. I care less. I care less when people think, sometimes it's a little too much. Like, okay, Jamie, you need to care a little more. Like,
Yeah.
like I have a moment, I'm like, okay, remember the sweet Jamie, the really nice sweet Jamie. So, yeah. But if I work out, like I was
Mhm.
telling Algelin, what did you call it? Sweating out the bitch. If
Yep.
I can work out, isn't that great? I
Yep.
love that. Sweating out the bitch. If I get that time to myself, I'm good. I am so
Yeah,
golden.
I
Um,
love that.
and also I'm just trying from just a practical point of view, I'm trying intermittent fasting, which has been very helpful for balancing out my hormones. I have the added thing, just like the iron, where I was allergic to the one thing that my body needed.
Ugh,
I
yeah.
cannot take a progesterone cream, which was super helpful. So I was using this bioidentical natural progesterone cream that I got from oh, what's it called? It's a downtown Poulsbo. It's where they make it. They apothecary, like they make it right there.
Oh,
What is it?
the compound pharmacy.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
And I would pick that up and you just rub a little bit on the inside of your arms and man, hot flashes went away, sleeping, but all of the things that if you balance out your hormones, but I
Mhm.
cannot take it because I
Mhm.
have the blood clot issue. So it's indicative or whatever. I can't say that word. Anyways, I can't have it. And so I don't get the easy way out. I have to work out, I have to meditate. And so I'm like, okay, universe, all right. Um, and so that, but I want to put that out there because natural progesterone cream is not the same as the medical artificial stuff that they give you for hormone therapy. It's a totally different
Yeah.
thing. And I did find that to be extremely helpful for me. So women out there, if you're looking for something, that is something to consider. I have a naturopath here in Poulsbo that I consult for that, and she's focused solely on women's health and those types of
Awesome.
issues. So
So you kind of have two kind of co-situations that have been happening. So I'd love for you to kind of break them down and show how they connect for our listeners. So
sure.
did you already begin perimenopause before you had the hysterectomy, or did your perimenopause kind of kick off after the hysterectomy? And kind of talk about how those two things connected for you, how they all kind of came together.
Okay, 2-year journey then. So a year before my hysterectomy, I started to go into perimenopause. And I'm like, so this is a year into being married. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, honey. Which is early, it was
Yeah.
early. It's like, here's the ABCs of me. Um, so I started going into perimenopause, and at work, I loved that at Vibe Coworks, there was I'd say at least half the people there were women, if not more. And so there were 4 or 5 of us would have hot flashes, and there was this like little donut sign thing. It was the shape of a donut about this
Yeah.
big. It was attached to this little stick, and it was meant for like an Instagram picture when you do they call it a donut. It's like a meetup, but it
Mhm.
became the perimenopause fan. And so
That's true.
and it was stuck up at the front desk. So you'd walk up there, my face would be all red, and I would start fanning myself. And I'm like, I swear, 1:30, 1 o'clock every day, like time, like clockwork. It was, my nose would turn red. Very embarrassing, but whatever. We made a joke of it. So that started then. And then what I didn't mention before was that I developed a fibroid. So not only was I anemic, I developed a fibroid that was embedded in my uterus. And so there was it was connected not to the bleeding that was normal bleeding for your cycle, but to my bloodstream. So I was literally pumping out blood out of my body, straight from my blood supply. And I was having like an extra period. So that's how I found out that I had a fibroid. Is I had my cycle, and then 4 days later I bled for 10 days and went to the emergency room, kind of, figured I had a fibroid. And then I was having this like extra period, so to speak, but it was literally just bloodletting every month.
Oh my God.
So it was worse in certain, every month it varied as far as how bad it was. And so then that's when we realized I needed to have surgery. And then the pandemic hit. I was to have the surgery in May, pandemic hit, had the surgery in August, due to just couldn't manage anymore without my blood, without having
blood in your body.
iron in your blood. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
if you don't have iron in your blood, for those who don't know, you don't have a way to get oxygen to your brain, to your heart, to all your organs. So I had a friend explain to me what it was like to climb a really tall mountain. And he said what he felt like at the top. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I felt like for months. I was really struggling to breathe. I was going up the stairs and couldn't make it, kind of thing. And so then once I had the surgery, now that it's been a few months of me just trying to get back on my feet, I feel like it's kicked up a little bit. I have both my ovaries. I did not have my ovaries removed, so that's helpful for me to go through the natural process. But I would say now that I'm not on the hormonal cream, it's been about a month. It's definitely kicked up the sense of feeling like I'm going through menopause. In regards to sleep, if I don't work out, I don't sleep well as well. Hot flashes at times, and fogginess, and also just being able to handle stress as well. Like I'm a little irritable, So the whole key to this is just I have to get my heart rate going. I have to get up and moving before I can start my day. So I need to have that. That's the piece I'm trying to implement right now, is the intermittent fasting again, and then working out in the morning, and then kind of starting my day, versus the flip. I used to flip it, do my workout at the end of the day. So I just got back. My family just left town. They were here for a week. So I haven't done anything for like a week and a half, and I'm feeling it. I'm definitely feeling it. Yes, it was very busy. Huh? Go
I
ahead.
hope you get in some Jamie time, self-care time, like whatever you need to like regenerate yourself.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm definitely I've got my workout bag packed. I'm doing it today.
Nice.
But I would like to say, like, I know for me, there is not a lot of information out there. And I feel like it's been me on my own trying to figure it out a little bit. And then kind of, like I said, like almost like patchwork quilting together ideas.
Yeah.
And so for other women out there, it's kind of like that. And I think it'll get better over time as we have companies like yours, providing information and resources and community around it. And the community that I've built through Vive with other women that are going through has helped a lot. That's helped tremendously. Just not feeling so alone. And, the irritable part, and like the progesterone going down and kind of being more snappy than you might normally be, that has been the hardest part for me, because that's just not how I normally handle things. I'm always kind of maintaining even strain. I mean, in that professional realm, and for me to go, ooh, that was a little short. Sometimes I'm like, okay, that's nice to have that ability to do that.
Yeah.
But that's the piece that I'm working through right now. So if you feel like you're being a bitch out there, other women, it's okay. You'll get through
It
it. You're
is
probably not as
okay.
bad as you think. It's probably not as
Yeah.
bad as you think too, on the outside looking in.
Well, I
Uh,
want to piggyback off of that because when I was doing some research on perimenopause and like some keywords that I was using, like perimenopause stats, how many people are going through perimenopause, and like other keywords to try to find like information of like actually how many, like what's a raw number or like percentage of people going through perimenopause, and is even hard to find. You'll find, people going like they have their periods. I could find stats on like how many hysterectomies happen a year, like on average, and then menopause facts. But like I don't think people really understand that there's like an in between from
right.
having a period to menopause, and that's the perimenopause. And then the only stat that I could find is like 3.7% of people are going through perimenopause. And I'm like, that just, percentage wise, that sounds low. But even like raw numbers wise, that kind of sounds low too, because perimenopause can last for years. It's not just like this 1 month stage between periods and
Exactly.
menopause, it can go on for years. So, like,
Be a decade
yeah.
for folks.
So,
Yeah.
please know that you are not alone. And you are right, Jamie. There is not a lot of information out there. So, what is one thing other than letting people know that they're not alone and it's okay to like feel like they're being bitchy? You've like spent so many years most likely carrying the burden of like other people. So, you're trying to like understand how to like just carry your own stuff. But what's something that you wish you would have known, or something that you can share for listeners out there that are going through something similar to you?
I wish that I had known about the naturopathic, um, what's the naturopath that I use. I wish that I would have understood that it'll pass, that you have times where you're foggy and times where you're more sharp. And I wish, like, the cream was definitely helpful. I wish that I could use it. I can't. Um, I would have liked to know about intermittent fasting. That was huge for me. And I feel like for me, I feel like I can do that because it's actually just not eating. So I'm removing an activity out of my day, not having to add one, which
Yeah.
was really convenient. And my appetite and everything shifted anyways.
Yeah.
So I felt such a huge benefit from it. The first 3 or 4 days were hard. And then once I got past that, it was pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would have, I haven't found this quite yet. I would have liked to have found a community of people to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
or like in person,
Yeah.
I know the pandemic is what it is, but being able to be around other women who are going through it. I'm a little on the younger side, so that's a little bit harder. I mean, I usually start in your 50s, so I would say I started at 45 first, but that's been that's been the case in my family, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a little rougher because I don't have as many women my age that are going through this. Um, let's see. I think those beginning pieces, having an actual person, medical doctor to talk to about it that doesn't just want to
Yeah.
put me on drugs. That's my personal, I
Yeah.
don't like drugs, don't get along very well. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't really take a lot of medications, which I'm not on anything right now, which is kind of good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there isn't a lot of information. Just being able to start out with accurate information, and then if you tend to be more naturopathic, having access to that. If you tend to be more traditional medicine, having access to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. I hope that answers your question. I
Yeah.
think the other thing, to go back a little bit to the hysterectomy, something that I wasn't prepared for was the sense of loss of my
Mm-hmm.
uterus being gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was so, I didn't want to have the surgery, but I knew I needed to. And I exhausted all the other options. But I definitely felt a loss of that. And I think that sometimes I feel outside of the conversation when I hear, like, I saw a workshop around, oh, their uterus is the seat of your creativity, and and like, and
Yeah.
there's some truth to that, though. There
Yeah.
is some truth to that. So as an artist, I've had to find that center inside my core,
Hmm.
like your chakra, along your chakra line. I've had to find where that sits, because I didn't know it until it's gone, but that sits right on the top. The feeling of my energy and my creative energy sat like, kind of like, I guess, inside my uterus. And so now it's like a little ball that is right above where my uterus used to be. Like, I had to visualize that. And maybe that's helpful for somebody else, that
Hmm.
it's real, the sense of feeling less like a woman, or like some, it's not it's not logical. It's just
Yeah.
a feeling, um that you cannot have babies anymore.
Hmm.
There's a weird sense of living on the edge when you can get pregnant every month. You could create life, and then,
Mhm.
even when I'm like, I'm not creating any more life, I'm done. At 47, it's just that weird sense of you can't, like your wings being clipped or something like that kind of
Yeah.
feeling. So that has been me literally creating like a psychic uterus, so to speak, um,
Mhm.
right above where my uterus used to be. So I focus in on energy right there, and that is helping, because I'm painting a new series, and I
I love
was a
that.
little worried. I was like, am I gonna have, is my creativity still there? Um, the young part of us, right? The young part of our beings. But I wanted to put that out there, that I would love there to be more conversations about that,
Yeah.
the feeling of having your physical uterus gone, and how to like recreate that sense of birthing things in life. Where do you find that seed of creativity?
Yeah.
What's
I
gone?
think that's so important, because we even really try to work to keep the agenda period open for non-binary, or maybe someone who is transgender, and there's a lot tied into these physical body parts, and there can be that this should have been there, or it was and now it's no longer there. And so energetically recreating that for yourself. We talk about people tapping into the moon cycles if they want to do that as a way to kind of
Yes,
track with that. But I just think that's a really beautiful image. Again, thank you for your artistic ability on this podcast, but just like really creating that energy center for yourself, I think is a great practice that people can do.
Hmm.
And just like this idea of tracking all along, if we get better at that, I think that will help push the information and say, hey, this is happening to us in mass. We need some more education around it. And when we're really
yes,
empowered with that health data for ourselves, I think that will become an easier thing to request from providers. So
Yeah.
just thank you for all you've shared today. Thank you for talking
absolutely.
to us about both perimenopause and your hysterectomy. It was really special to have you with us today. So thank you for your time.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Thanks, Jamie.
You are welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Um, well, Jamie, if anybody wants to connect with you in terms of like learning more about the art that you do, and even the work that you do as a user experience consultant, what is a good way for them to, connect with you or learn more about you?
I'm going to tell you really quick, because my computer's going to die. For some reason, it's not plugged in correctly. I just realized that.
Oh
Um,
no.
mimilabs .ux@gmail.com would be a great way to get a hold of me. And that's for either one. It's mostly my UX work, but you can reach me there if you're interested in what I do as an artist as well.
Awesome. Thank you. I love
Yeah.
chatting with you, Jamie. Thank you so much for being on this podcast today, and like helping to shed the shame around like having a hysterectomy, going through perimenopause, and just like bringing more light to it and understanding. So thank you so much. So
Absolutely.
thank you to our listeners and supporters of the Shed the Shame podcast and fundraising campaign. If you have a story about how you shed the shame and would love to be a guest, please email us at podcast@shedtheshame.co. And to learn more about the fundraising campaign, visit www.shedtheshame.co. And as Alex has like, when she first talked about this podcast, what she says is, let's keep it real and messy, just like periods. Right, Alex?
Nice, I
Absolutely.
like it.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
All right, take care.